What is up, sexy people? It is Dave. It is Duncan, back from Metal
A
Epidemic.
frustrated Duncan who was in the middle of explaining something very technical, very complicated. One would say extremely complex and scientific, and then Dave was like 3, 2, 1, record.
And we're live. Back for another album review. On this review, Duncan and I have been checking out the new album from Cleveland death metal quartet 200 Stab Wounds. The band's new album, Manic Procedures, will be released on June 28th via Metal Blade Records.
50 stab wounds each. That's a sore arm. That's an arm day at the gym. You know what I mean? It's like, what's today? Today's like fucking bicep day. 50 each.
200 Stab Wounds have returned with their new album, a superlative sophomore effort that follows 2021's Slave to the Scalpel, their tour de force debut. While Slave to the Scalpel saw 200 Stab Wounds insinuate themselves into the minds of extreme metal fans, Manic Procedures sees the band upping the ante both musically and lyrically. You tour and you grow as a band and as people, says vocalist Steve Bull. We were working on the new album before the first one came out. But as far as sitting down and really putting it all together, we started in late 2022 because we were on tour so much. We signed to Metal Blade, took a 4 or 5 month break. We took everything we had and put it all together, then obviously put lots of new stuff in there, and we worked our asses off on it. Manic Procedures was demoed at Bull's home studio, the frontman throwing a rough version together using a laptop and drum machine before the band got together to finish it off. I show up with the finished songs, and then there'll be a couple of songs where we add things musically, but as far as lyrics go, Ezra on bass and I split them pretty much 50-50 down the middle. It's that way because I like to focus more on the music. The themes on the album run the gamut of classic gore metal horror subject matter, beloved to the band and the rapidly growing audience. I feel what kind of vibe the song has and what topic would fit for that particular song, Bill explains. The last song on the new record, Parricide, is about someone going into a nursing home and just blowing it up. The lyrics are about those types of corporations that don't really give a fuck about those people. It's just
Breaking Bad. That's Breaking Bad season 3, isn't it? Ding, 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 ding.
We're glad that people like our band, and I definitely feel people are going to love this record for sure. The album feels like it needed to happen because we've had so many fucking things happen to us as a band since our last one came out. That's why we put out the Masters of Morbidity 45 last year. We were touring so much that we really didn't have time to put a record together that was really worth a shit, until now. Manic Procedures was produced and mixed by Andy Nelson and mastered by Brad Boatwright.
We love you, Brad Boatwright.
We do love you, Brad Boatwright. Okay, so second album from 200 Stab Wounds.
Right, Dave.
Right, what?
People are gonna like comments online. I know what people are like.
What?
I'm gonna
What are they
preempt the. Wait 1 second, do you fucking love these guys, right? I'm gonna preempt the weird marks for 200 Stab Wounds comments that are inevitably gonna come in from cunts, right? People that are just like sitting there, fucking what's it or Cheeto dust on their fingers, typing on their computer whilst they're sitting there with their other hand on a fucking flaccid cock, right? Yes, me and Dave love 200 Stab Wounds, right? There's a reason we love 200 Stab Wounds. Dave has a history, a wide history of loving 90s to early 2000s and beyond that, because you love everything inspired or originators of death metal. That's Dave's fucking, that's his fucking backbone. It's his modus operandi.
Yeah.
Duncan, a guy who originally wasn't into that, but through bands like Sanguisugabogg and 200 Stab Wounds has found and has went back and enjoyed a genre that he grew up through, that he would much rather push aside to listen to new metal. And Fred Durst. Sorry, everyone. But I'm now into that zone, right? And that previous release was fucking fire, right?
Yeah.
We both come out of that being like that. Who are these guys? Who are these young bastards, right? We're going like, what the fuck is this 200 Stab Wounds? But we were both in.
Yeah.
But there was a question. We did this with Sanguisugabogg, and the question was, is this lightning in a bottle? Have we captured lightning? A freak occurrence here? Or can they deliver the goods on the more important, and it always is the more important, album number 2? Right, so that's the precursor. Yes, we loved the previous album, but we also came into this fully expecting that it is very, very, very easy, and more often than not, likely to fuck up the second album.
Well, you say that, Duncan. But when we reacted to the opening track of this album, Hands of Eternity.
But that's a single, Dave. You can't judge an album by like they put the best foot forward. They're like, look at this foot. Look at this foot here. It's going forward. That's what they do, Dave. They try and trick you. They trick you, like Nickelback with the San Quentin song, which is a metal riff, and you think it's going to be heavy, and it's for like this is what they do, Dave. They try and trick you, so you can't judge a single. You can't judge it. If you're a fan, you can't judge a single.
I kind of did.
Well, I did, Duncan. I was like, yes, this is me.
That track was the mother of all album openers. That is just fucking so good. I mean, like, slow build and burn up. It just erupts into this grooving death metal machine of a track. Like, riffs that are just so Moorish. Tempo switches are perfect. There's a little bit of dark melody in there as well if you look for it. And I felt like that's just setting the tone. It's just like, here you go, guys. Here it comes.
And everything else was shit. Right? Is that what you're telling me? The single was amazing, but the rest of this is what the internet's like clawing on right now. That was amazing, and you were right to like that, but everything else was awful because they can't follow up an amazing debut with an amazing sophomore. It can't happen, Dave.
Sometimes that is the case, Duncan. But however, I could tell from that opening track, things were a little bit different. There was a little bit more structure in that first track, with some new ideas on composition. You could hear things had just kind of moved up a level. You know, we've heard this happen over the last couple of years. A few bands within this style have really upped their game. You know, your Sanguisugaboggs, Frozen Soul, Gatecreeper. You know, they've all refined their sound. They've elevated it since the last release. And two of them Stab Ones have done it again. 200
Stab Ones.
What is wrong with me?
I don't know. I'm the one that's drinking, and you are the one that's not. Like, you know what? I feel kind of fresh for what I've drunk. So I'm now thinking that maybe we're in a symbiotic relationship. Well, whatever's passing my lips is hitting you.
Am I getting drunk from
Give
you?
me a second here. Feeling a wee bit woozy, Dave. Close your eyes. Room spinning right now, is it?
332 Stab Ones. It's just a really good band and a good album and that, eh?
How inappropriate would the bands do? Like, 200 Stab Ones, amazing. 321 Stab Ones, that's a confusing name. But that's the difficulty. People are like, hey, you can just pick any two words and put them together and that's a band name. Is it though? 321 Stab Ones. Like, that doesn't make sense. No. 200 Stab Wounds, Dave.
I feel like they have also elevated things. Yeah. Weirdly though, and this is a strange one, when I listened to this album, it didn't grab me as suddenly as Slave to the Scalpel did, right?
Do you think that's because you already were acquainted with their sound, or do you think that's because this album demands a little bit more attention of the listener?
Yes, the latter. I think there was a simplicity to Slave to the Scalpel that didn't really require all that much like dissection, really. If we're sticking within this, like
excuse the pun. I mean, to see the artwork, by the way.
Holy Jesus Christ.
Some nasty fucking artwork, by the way. That's not going on a t-shirt that anyone can do. That makes Jesus as a cunt look like alright.
But to be honest, I loved it for that reason. Its simplicity was its genius, to be honest.
Yeah.
It kind of lured you in straight away and then it just pummeled you for the whole entirety of the album. My first listen to this album was different. Like, I could tell there was a bit more beneath the hood on this one. I think it was probably listen 3 that I did on the album. I was like, right, okay, this is all starting to kind of piece together a bit easier. Firstly, what I would say is this is just as heavy as Slave to the Scalpel. Like, it hits just as hard.
Yes.
But that little bit of refinement in the tracks I feel kind of sets them apart more. I think the tracks on this album are a little bit more distinguishable than the tracks on Slave to the Scalpel, which were just like fucking punishingly
Boom,
heavy.
boom, boom, boom.
Yeah. There's more variation here in the riffs that makes it stand out a little bit more. There's also a handful of ideas they've incorporated a little more of on this one, which, you know, fluctuates the tempo more than before. And I think that's a huge benefit on this album. I think I first clocked it. I think it was track 3 where there's a moment they switch from like a kind of dissonant kind of double bass drum groove, and it switches into this like rapid kind of thrash tinged death metal section. I was like, oh fuck, right, here we go. And it kind of was like in this a similar kind of vein to like maybe some of the material on like Violence Unimagined from Cannibal Corpse. It had that kind of like pace and tempo to it. Flesh from Within also has that kind of like burst of pace, but that reminded me of like an early kind of Sepultura, almost like a Rise era Sepultura, but a bit heavier. And those like little deviations are a really clever way just to catch your attention a bit more and give you something a little bit different on the album. I also like the fact they did keep some things the same. They use a kind of concept from Slave to the Scalpel where that middle track is like a kind of breathing point on the album. I think it was Phallic Filth on the previous album where they had the kind of ominous synths and there was someone kind of like choking and gurgling in the background. Here it's Led to the Chamber and Liquefied, which again has like synths, atmosphere, there's kind of building drums, there's a big guitar solo, and then there's a lot of kind of chaos and distortion at the end, which then leads into...
Ends in a way which is, like, we've talked about this recently, it's like very, very, very downward spiral. Like,
yeah.
it's like ends, the way it like cuts it as well in the next track, I'm like, this could fucking be on the downward spiral. And fit.
Heavily distorted, leads into Flesh from Within. I really like that moment, that part in the middle of the album. I think it's a really good idea just to have that kind of reset point. A couple of tracks here I need to highlight though. Just down to the fact, just because they absolutely slap, right? So I'll start off with Release the Stench. Just utterly punishing. Like it opens with a solo, right? So like this is something to do on the album a couple of times. At the start of the track, they add the solo in, and this one's like loads of these big, that kind of like dive bomb bends on the kind of whammy and stuff like that with the big solos. I liked there was a kind of like alternative placement of that, having it right at the start and then pushing the intensity through the rest of the track, where it gets to the end of the track and it's just an absolutely crushing, slow churning groove right at the end, which just ended me. The other one I need to mention is Defiled Gestation, which is the longest track on the album, 4 minutes 24, and my God, like, what a track. It also includes a bit of that clean guitar that you hear on the opening track. There's some of that on Flesh from Within as well, but I love the way they mix that clean stuff in with the heavier riffs and the intro of that track. I thought it was really cool. The riffs on it though are just utterly crushing.
Ridiculous.
Those the parts where they have the guitars and the bass drums syncing up, it's like being shot in the face with a paintball gun. Like it's just like so like impactful. Great tempo switches, and then they end with this kind of like twin harmonizing guitar, which I thought was really cool to end the track with, a real kind of like chef's kiss moment. Love those two tracks. The track Ride the Flatline,
which comes right after,
so that features Jamie from Code Orange on vocals. That's a collab that I did not expect to see on a 200 Stab Wounds album. But actually, like, his voice works really well. He's got a totally different tone and register. So against Steve's more kind of guttural vocal in the last part of the track, I thought the two vocals worked really well together. The only track where I was like, it's okay, was the closer. Parasite for me. Again, it opts for the kind of solo at the start of the track, which was cool. I just found the overall kind of arrangement of it was a little bit flat, a little bit undercooked for me. I think I was waiting on a kind of bigger moment, especially with it being the closer of the album. It just never gave me that like fuck yes kind of moment on the album. That was the only one that was like, that's okay. The rest were fantastic. Production on this is crisp. It's
It's fucking ridiculous, is what
crisp
it is.
crisp and chunky. It's like sounds like a fucking cereal. Like crisp and chunky from 200 Stab Wounds. But yeah, I loved the sound of the album. I think Andy and Brad have done a killer job. It's got a slightly fresher sound on this one. It's a little less dank sounding than Slave to the Scalpel. Scample?
I don't know what's going on with you.
I don't know. My mouth is not
Tune your
working.
tongue in between the sentences, yeah.
Stop drinking that beer. Which, like, I can't deny, I loved the production on the last album. I think it totally worked for that kind of sound they had. But this also feels like a step up in the production department. I think it suits the slightly more energized sound they have on Manual Manic Procedures. Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. No surprises, really, to be honest. It's another banging album from 200 Stab Wounds. What about yourself? What do you think?
So yeah, I got into these guys pretty hard, and that this was like the start of, they're on the crest of the wave of me starting to appreciate a style of music that I probably should have been into more, that I tolerated but what I didn't love. And it has, like, I can't stress this enough, bands like Sanguisugabogg and 200 Stab Wounds, and moreover the more recent Carcass and specifically the more recent Cannibal Corpse stuff has opened an interest to me where I went back to albums that I owned, that I listened to maybe once or twice and was like, oh, that's alright, and then kind of being like, actually I fucking now really appreciate this for what it is, that I maybe wasn't attuned to, mature enough you could say, or immature enough depending on your bent. I loved that previous album. I thought that previous album captured like a sound, a vibe, an intensity and a focus that was kind of difficult not to just sit there and go fucking wow, you know what I mean? They are going all out on this one to try and make it like every single song felt like it had an urgency and a purchase about it, that if it was the only song that you heard, if you were going into a shop and this song was playing, if that was the only song you heard while you were in there, by the end of listening to that song you wanted to find out, one, who had done it, and two, how you could get the album. That's what there was, just an intense urgency about it. We obviously reacted to one of the tracks, the opening track, and it had me, like, I thought it sounded more mature. I thought it sounded bigger. It did give me a little bit of trepidation though. I was like, that, do I need symphonics throughout this album? The answer was no. But the band preempted that by saying we also don't need that. So Hands of Eternity has that. The only other track that really leans into that is Led to the Chamber / Liquefy, which plays a little bit more with those textures. Also lands at the midway mark of the album. If you're buying the vinyl, maybe a flip side of this album is under 30 minutes long. I would like to think you get that on one side. I don't know how vinyl works, but I kind of feel like you're being cheeky if you're spinning it, right? But I did kind of feel like that's a natural, like, stop point, like reset, and then you go into the back half with Flesh from Within Beyond. You mentioned the production, that's where I'm going to start. Love the production in this. It captures that kind of late 90s, updates it, makes it clearer, but it doesn't feel refined. Like, there's plenty of dank, dun, 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 like moments where modern day death metal makes it more jun, 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 you know, there's a cleanness to that. This one still has a bit of depth and a bit of murk behind it, even though it's nice and clear. Switch ups are phenomenal on this, right? Like, this band knows how to find a groove. Sometimes it takes a bit of time to find the groove. Like, they'll skirt around the edge a little bit. The title track, Manual Manic Procedures, is a great example of them kind of like hitting the groove, like hitting that speed tempo, and then maybe playing a little bit around, and then, all right, here's the groove, locking in, and then going off again, and then locking back to that groove. There's also, like, you come out that long first track, and then Gross Abuse, Manual Manic Procedures, and To Release the Stench are three songs that give you no respite at all. And they also, like, basically the stop is the start of the next track. There's not like a boo, and then the next song kicks off. It's like boom, boom, like right in. I kind of love that because, like I said before, 5 feels like the mid mark where we reset things. So basically, from the opening orchestration of track 1 through to the end of Release the Stench, actually almost feels like one big old long track with different movements. Drumming's ridiculous on this. Death metal drummers get a bad rap, right? Sometimes it's all just, oh, she's blast beats, she's blast beats. Or if you're Sanguisugabogg, where's the blast beats, where's the blast beats? I've read the YouTube comments. No, they're not a death metal band, there's no blast beats. They're a groove metal band, listen to the grooves. Fuck off, right? This guy here is, like, really playful. Like, really, really playful. The riffs accentuate that playfulness of him allowing to go full on with the blasts, like rapid fucking snare hits, full on bass pedals, but then we'll like slow right down and just give you that riff that you want, that you need to headbang to. And vocally, I don't think this is improved over the previous album, and I'm going to say that's a good thing. I thought the vocals were perfect on the previous album. I think they're perfect here. There's not a huge range. I don't think there needs to be a huge range. I think he has a tone that works incredibly well. The production on it is also chef's kiss. Weirdly, this is one of these ones where I'm going to 100% agree with you. I don't often do this on death metal albums. I think the closing song on the album is a bit of a wet squib. I think it doesn't have the same sharpness or focus of the rest of the album, and it kind of feels like a bit of a hodgepodge of ideas which lacks a cohesiveness that the rest of the album has in spades. And as a result of that, I kind of feel like we end on a kind of like a dull note, whereas like tracks 1 through 8 are laser like almost fucking like drone like US fucking we're going to bomb a city laser point precision. Like track 9 feels like we've hit a civilian house. It just is so off the target. It's weird, and like I don't know why that's happened. I know in the press statement they said something about that closing song being different, or they approached it different, or it was the last song written or whatever. It's the one that feels tagged on. The rest of the album feels like the vision. I don't hate it. I just feel like it's a bit messy. It's a bit sloppy, where the rest of the album is actually weirdly very precision based and very well executed. So yeah, like as a follow-up, I loved it. I think it's great. I think they're one of the more exciting death metal acts on the go right now, to be so early in their career and still like just churning out. And they've got over that. Is this, like I said before at the start, is this lightning in a bottle, or are 200 Stab Wounds the real deal? Turns out, surprise, surprise, real deal all the way through. I'm not sold on the closing track, but the rest of this is straight up fucking fire.
Nice. So, scores for Manic Procedures. It's another banger from 200 Stab Wounds. I like the tweaks they've made here. They all work extremely well. I think this album flows really well. Like, it's one of those albums that you finish and you're like, yep, let's just play that once through again. Very easy just to hit on loop. Not much I didn't like, to be honest. I agree with you that the last song was just lacking a little something in comparison to the other tracks. To be honest, I think the opening track is just so decimating that, you know, the closer was always going to struggle to rival the opening of the album.
It's such a statement of intent from the band that honestly feels like you think you know what 200 Stab Wounds is. Listen to this and you hear it, you're like, that holy fucking shit, what is this? It's like they are all, it's like it's the steroid, it's the fucking Ivan Drago on the fucking treadmill like this being injected with steroids. Like you're watching all that, it shouldn't, like no person should be able to do this. It's such a colossal step up from what you've heard that how do you close that out unless you go like, how do you close it out?
Yeah, I know.
Unless you just play it, you do a Boys to Men concert and close with the like Hands of Eternity. Open and close with the same. I don't know how you do it, man.
I don't know. For me, overall, I'm going to 4.5 out of 5 on this one. Duncan, what are you thinking?
I'm coming in there. I can't remember what I gave the previous album. I want to say it was either a 4 or a 4.5. I think I would score this I might be wrong here, I might get shamed. I'm going in 4.5. If I gave the previous album 4, it should have been 4.5. I apologise. 4. I like 200 Stab Wounds they're fucking circling the drain of a 5. It is like it's so tantalisingly close. I love these guys. I genuinely think I'd love to see them live, but I think they're very acutely aware of what they need to do.
Yeah.
And my opinion is there's a slight misstep here. And that's all I can say. It's a slight thing that knocks it down. But with that, everything else on this is absolutely fucking solid gold. So 4.5.
Nice. So that's a new album from 483 Stab Ones. Manual Manic Procedures is the album. Drops on June 28th on Metal Blade Records. Links below to the band, to the pre-order. Have a little listen, check it. If you've not heard that opening track,
someone with OCD right now is just fucking throwing himself in front of a car. Like, honestly, what are we doing?
That is
it's
the
not
review.
a name!
Someone just unsubscribed from our channel. That's the review. Thank you for checking it out. Much appreciated. We'll be back with another review very soon. And by the way, 200 Stab Wounds, get yourself to Scotland again. We need to see a wee headliner.
We missed you. That's our fault, not yours. So we're not going to be too pushy on the comeback. But moan
back to Scotland, headlining in Scotland,
headlining tour. Come on.
That's all from us. Thank you. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.